Hello, fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another mini wrap-up. This is going to be kind of long. I'm going to go as fast as possible and catch you up on all of the things that I have been reading recently that I haven't told you about. So first up, I told you I was working through a reread of Richard II by William Shakespeare. The first time I read it, I was reading it for plot. The second time for the beautiful poetry. I unfortunately read this over too many sittings for it to be super impactful. So upon reread, I still give this 3 out of 5 stars for right now. But this has by far been one of the best Shakespeare reading experiences since I started trying to catch up with the Bard Book Club or pick through the things I hadn't read before. The Bard Book Club is hosted by Libby Stevenson. You need to watch her channel. She is delightful. I finally got to The Search for Delicious by Natalie Babbitt. This is a story, this is a book, a novel, a children's novel I read as a child but was really annoyed. The paperback cover has a mermaid on it, so I thought it was going to be more about mermaids, but it's not. It's about people. That's cool. That's good. This kind of showcases how propaganda can lead to rebellion and civil war. It also has kind of an ancient race of beings that I also really enjoyed. So this was a surprising, pleasant surprise. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars, but this is a solid 3 out of 5 stars. I recommend that you pick this up if you're interested in some more not quite contemporary middle grade fiction. I then finished another Greek play. This is Electra by Sophocles. This was my favorite version of Electra of this storyline. There's another Electra by Euripides and then one called Orestes by Aeschylus, but I think Sophocles' version was my favorite. It had a lot more female protagonists in it. I want to reread this to give a more in-depth idea, but so far I'm not discounting Sophocles as an interesting playwright for the ancient Greeks. I also reread A Christmas Carol because it is Christmas in my heart all year round, and I watched a YouTube video about the Muppet Christmas Carol and it got me feeling really nostalgic for Christmas, so I decided to listen to the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook narrated by Simon Vance, which has extra music tracks in it, so it has church bells. It also has this really fun jig during Fezziwig's Christmas celebration, so it was just a really lovely reading experience, and I wish it was Christmas time already. Still a 4 out of 5 star read for me. Finally, I listened to an audiobook version of The Chrysanthemums by John Steinbeck. I don't think John Steinbeck understands women. This story was so close to being so good, and then it took a turn, and I was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing, John? I don't understand. I don't understand you. 2 out of 5 stars. I reread the third Anne of Green Gables book. This is Anne of the Island by L.M. Montgomery. I listened to the audiobook on my Overdrive, and I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars when I finished it. It was very sickly sweet. I was kind of rushing through it, to be perfectly fair to this book. When I was listening to it, I wanted to reread this so that I could hopefully finish the series later this year, and I don't think rushing through something ever works out well for the thing unless you're rushing through it because it's so good, and I wasn't. There didn't seem to be any real conflict in here. I mean, there were a couple moments where it was oh, that's a little bit profound, but there were a lot where, oh, that's convenient. Everything's still fine and great. I'm hoping that there are more complex adult issues at work in the future novels. This was interesting about leaving home, and when you return home, doesn't quite feel like home. I don't know, maybe I was a bit harsh when I rated this, but I left the book feeling like it was okay more than I liked it. Does that make sense? I'm still planning on continuing with the series, at least one more book, and then I'll decide if the series is passed me by or if I should continue. So we'll see. I listened to the audiobook Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Berendt. This is a microhistory about Savannah, Georgia in the 1980s. It is kind of little vignettes about specific, very, very interesting characters who are actually real people. And then eventually they all kind of come together a little bit. This also has to do with just a little bit of murder. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I thought it was well written and engaging. I really enjoyed the audiobook as well. It captured different people's accents and mannerisms and way of speaking. I highly recommend it. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I then read part 1 of the play Henry IV by Shakespeare. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my jam. There was too much Falstaff and fat shaming and not enough poetry or King Henry IV, really, in this play. So hopefully I'll read part 2 soon for the Bard Book Club, and we'll see if I care. I listened to the audiobook Charlotte Brontë, A Fiery Heart by Claire Harmon. In the UK edition, it's called Charlotte Brontë, A Life, so I don't know what they think Americans need to convince us to read about Charlotte. I listened to this on audiobook and I buddy read it with Acacia Ives. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but one annoying thing is that it talks about all of the Brontës, which is cool, but it talks about all of Bronte's books. So if you don't want to be spoiled on the 7 novels of the Brontës, you need to read them all before you read this book. And I had only read 6 when I listened to it. Kind of annoyed. I'll talk about this a little bit more in a separate review. I read All Systems Red during Tourathon and then decided to pick up the second novella, Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, just like All Systems Red. I really enjoyed the first half of the story a lot more than the second half. I'm more interested in Murderbot, who is funny and sarcastic as all get out, and I'm not as much concerned about the human issues. I like that Murderbot is so indifferent to everything around them that our viewpoint into the world is really limited. I kind of like that I don't need to know 100% what's going on. I just need to know that these people are bad for this reason and these people are good for this reason. But sometimes it feels maybe a little too convenient. The end of this one was not as compelling as the end of the first one, so I'm not sure when exactly I'll get to the 3rd novella, but I do intend to continue with this series. I also finished reading The Complete Tales of Beatrix Potter, though this is not her complete works. They're just the complete stories within the Peter Rabbit book series, I guess you could say, which is kind of annoying. I wish it had like everything. It says complete, but they're lying. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I did not grow up reading Beatrix Potter. In fact, I recently found out that the Beatrix Potter books we have in my bookshelf are adaptations of Beatrix Potter's books. They're based on her books. They're not illustrated by her, which makes me so mad. It's like a Franken book. I don't understand. These are just very, very lovely. I loved all of the illustrations, both watercolor and the black and white prints. I really enjoyed her writing style and the language she used, how it was simple enough, but also had a very charming early 1900s feel to it, which is when she was writing them. I just really, really enjoyed reading this, and I think that's mostly because I'm reading something else along with it. By the way, this is a recent haul because I have accidentally acquired 7 books since I last spoke to you, so let me whip the rest of them out. The book I read alongside The Complete Tales is this biography by Linda Lear. This is Beatrix Potter, A Life in Nature. I am buddy reading this with M.A. Anders and Natalie from Curious Reader. This is a pretty in-depth but so readable and enjoyable biography of Beatrix Potter. I am just like Beatrix Potter nuts right now. In here it talks about the creation of all of the different tales, which just brought those tales to life so much more than they would have without this background information. This has just been so much fun to read. We are very close to the end, maybe like 3 or 4 chapters left, but this is definitely one of my favorite reads of the year. Beatrix Potter just makes you want to understand and look at animals, so I bought a couple natural history books all the way from ye olde England. Was that offensive? The Robin, a biography by Stephen Moss, comes highly recommended from M.A. Anders. This is one of her favorite natural history, nature writing, nonfiction books all about the robin. I've read the first chapter and I like it pretty well so far, though I realized that maybe it was dumb to buy a book about an animal I can't actually witness because this is the English robin, different from the American robin. So maybe that wasn't a good idea. Or maybe it was. Maybe I like nature that I can't actually access because who am I kidding? Am I going to go outside? No. Also highly recommended by MA is Badgerlands, The Twilight World of Britain's Most Enigmatic Animal by Patrick Barkham. Did I nail it? Almost. This is about badgers, and again, an animal who only lives in England or Britain, but that's okay. I am farther in this. I am around 120 pages in and enjoying it quite a lot. I really like this writing style. I also really love learning about the badger. The third chapter is about Mr. Badger in The Wind in the Willows and how it was instrumental in changing our perception of the badger and our protection of the badger. This has been very, very interesting. I am for sure a badger at heart, both because I am ornery and introverted like Mr. Badger, and also because I am a Hufflepuff. So this has been very, very interesting so far, and I will continue reading it. Also, Beatrix Potter related, this is another cute biography. This is by someone. This is The Tale of Beatrix Potter by Margaret Lane. This was a gift from my friend's family. I think they had this lying around, knew I was reading about Beatrix and wanted to know if I wanted another take on it. This is a significantly shorter and really cute and vintage biography. This was from 1968. So I'm planning on reading this once I finish the Linda Lear biography and still have the more intensely researched, I reckon, facts still in my mind to take to this one, which seems to be a little bit more like, it's going to feel more like a narrative, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as factual. I will update you. For the Brontë binge project, I was a bit naughty and picked up another book. This is the Juvenilia, Tales of Glasstown, Angria, and Gondel by the Brontes. This includes some of the Juvenilia by the three sisters and also Branwell Brontë. They, when they were younger, wrote almost like their own Dungeons and Dragons, but without dungeons or dragons, just these made-up kingdoms. I'm not sure how readable this will be, but I'm really eager to see where they started in their writing and see if there are actually secretly some really great story fragments hidden in this Juvenilia. And then finally, a very recent surprise. This is Dutch Girl, Audrey Hepburn and World War II by Robert Matson. This was a gift from my dad, who saw it and knew I loved Audrey Hepburn and knew that I was a little bit interested in World War II. I'm currently reading this and hope to finish it sometime soon, and I will report back with more of my thoughts on what actually happened to Audrey Hepburn during World War II. So those additions put my physical TBR up to 33 books. I'm still okay with that number, even though I don't seem to be chipping away at it very much. I feel like the library just keeps getting in my way of actually getting my physical TBR down. It's not the library's fault, it's all my fault. I've really been enjoying using the library so far this year. It has really helped me not buy books that I don't need to own. It's been fun to go to the library and be able to pick something up, and if I'm not into it, I don't have to justify why I purchased it. I can just give it back without any guilt. But I think I am still kind of mostly reading new things and not things that are actually on my shelves, so that's not very good. But I've been having fun this year, so hopefully I will get that focus on that physical TBR sooner rather than later, get a lot of those new acquisitions finished. I've already started 3 of them and I finished 1. I have to finish 3 more. So yeah, we'll just see what ends up happening. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have a new obsession that you have read about in books. Like, I'm going on a Beatrix Potter tangent and apparently also a biography tangent. It feels like that's what's happening lately. I am 100% for it. Have you found any new interests? Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely.